Hey Kendra, thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, I'm Kendra Thomas. I'm a young adult fantasy author, and I am primarily right now doing Instagram and TikTok and trying to just promote myself on there. So, primarily, that's where I'm at right now. I'm writing a couple of things. But yeah, I'm from a small town in Utah, and I'm a dental hygienist on the side. So, just all sorts of different things. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me. Yeah.
Love it. What is your book? What are your books about?
Okay, so I have a series right now, a young adult fantasy series. I'm currently finishing the last book. But they're about a princess who encounters a curse, and it's in a mystical realm where people, when they turn 18, they gain a power, and they're called the stone-hearted people because their hearts um, it's connected to a magical tree and stones, and there's all this lore behind it. But basically, a princess that encounters a curse. It's got love and adventure and all sorts of fun stuff. But just yeah, young adult fantasy. Um, yeah, set in a different world. So lots of different tropes in it. I mean, forbidden love, enemies to lovers, multiple points of view. So you kind of get a bit of everything. I have a love triangle in it. But yeah, that's kind of what my books are about.
Love it. What inspired you to write your books?
So I started to really read when I was in sixth grade. And there was an author, her name's April Pike, and she came out with a book called the Wings series, or a series, I guess, and it was about fairies, and it inspired me. And I originally started writing fan fiction to that series because I just loved these characters, and so that's kind of where it started. And it kind of morphed into my own thing, and that's actually where my story kind of came from. Now my book is nothing about fairies. It's not urban fantasy, and the series that I loved that kind of inspired this series was urban fantasy, but completely different take. But that's kind of what inspired me originally, was the Wing series by Berlin Pike. And my second book is actually dedicated to this author. I just think she's incredible, and she kind of just made me the writer I am. So yeah, that's kind of where that came from.
I love that. That's so awesome. When writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your books are for?
Oh, this is a very interesting question. I really wanted it to be for the generation that is the young adults, because I just was so inspired as a kid, like by Wings and stuff, that I wanted to write something like that for other people. But I found that it's also been for older adults as well, and for myself, and for I guess me and my best friend, I guess you could say, wrote it for us as well, because we would just dive into this world when we were younger, and we just loved creating in it. I had a friend that she just helped me to develop the whole series, actually. And I feel like half the time I'm finishing the series for her. So I think it's a mix between myself and my friends and family, and then just that young adult audience that I really would love to give them a world that they could slip into. But yeah, that's kind of who it's for, I guess you could say.
How long have you been writing, and what made you really sit down and start to write your books?
So I've been writing since I could say 12, because that's kind of when I think there was never a space between reading and writing. It was, I started to read and immediately was like, I want to do this. So I started to read at age 12. I mean, I read before, but like I really started to like read books in a day, and just like consume them like crazy when I was in sixth grade. So then I would write as well, or attempt to try to write around the age 12. And so that's kind of where it started. And I've been writing ever since, but nothing's ever really been complete until when I was around 19, because I would write manuscripts and drop off halfway through and give up and start again and start again. And it would just kind of, I was kind of all over the place, but it really started to become something more tangible when I was like 19, you could say. But yeah.
Amazing. What's your schedule like when you are writing a book?
Um, so it can just vary because sometimes I'm a very moody writer, and sometimes it's uh, easy to write. And I can finish a book in 2, 3 months. And like with Hearted, the second book in the series, it only took me 3 months because I was writing every day and just felt like nonstop because I was so inspired. But this book, for instance, it's like pulling teeth, and I've had to take a whole year to try and complete this book. So now I've realized, though, through all of this, that I do kind of have a schedule, and I am more consistent now, thankfully. But evenings is when I really, really like to write now. Unless the writing bug takes over and I do something like Hearted, where I write every day for multiple hours and just complete a book. And that's rare that that'll happen to me, and I'll just like binge finish a book. But usually I'm consistent, and I try to write in the evenings. Around 7 o'clock is actually like the time I put in my calendar, and I usually get to it. If I write at a random time during the day that's not 7 o'clock, great. But I just like have to have a set time for myself, so I can see how often I am getting stuff done. But that's what I try to do. Evening times, I've tried the mornings, it doesn't work, but that's kind of how it is for me, is the evenings. And then sometimes random spurts. So I guess you could say maybe it's not actually linear at all, and it's just wild. So that's probably a terrible answer to the question, but
Definitely love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Oh, sometimes there's different things that will keep me focused. Sometimes music helps. Other times it absolutely just is not helping. So I have to have, also it varies where I'm at. Sometimes I have to be sitting at a desk, or it just is, I don't want to do it. And other times I have to literally be in my bed. And it really is just a mood thing. And so, so I've written I've written so many words one time just to like one song on repeat, and like I just needed that song to just push me through, and then I'd never listen to it again, but it was just like to help me finish that block. So sometimes I just will grab random things, and it's very a moody thing for me. It all depends on mood and how I'm feeling, which I wish it kind of wasn't that way, but I just think that's part of being an artist, is like you just kind of have to go with how you're feeling to get it complete. um I don't really need like food or anything nearby. I don't need any special like equipment. I just have my laptop, and that's it. And yeah, I just go.
What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Okay, so I mean, I love like goldfish. Like just absolutely could eat that snack all day every day. So if I am going to snack on something, it would be that. And I just love soda. I'm not a water person, so if there's going to be a drink, it will probably be Coke, Pepsi, whatever, randomly root beer, it doesn't matter. I just absolutely love soda, and I need to drink more water. But that is what I will have. If I am doing like a break or something, I'll probably do something like that and then jump back in. But
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
oh, so it just it's funny because I write young adult fantasy, but I definitely do not read young adult fantasy that often, at least not anymore. I'm a very big, right now, contemporary romance reader. Like I like to read stuff that's very lighthearted and just romantic comedy kind of vibe. When I was younger, I think that wasn't the case. I really wanted to read like urban fantasy and fantasy in general. And it's harder for me to read that stuff now. And I think it's because I have exhausted myself with that genre. So, but I enjoy all sorts of things. I think the only thing I probably can't get into is like mystery or something, or nonfiction. I just struggle with that kind of stuff. But I'll read basically anything if it has a bit of romance in it. I can't read stuff that doesn't have, even if it's like an underlying hint that there's a romantic something, I can get through it. But if it's just blatantly just magic only and storyline only and no romance, I struggle. So it has to have romance in it always. But yeah.
Amazing. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Yes, so the Wings series was the first, but absolutely Twilight, absolutely the Hunger Games, that kind of time period, the Selection series. They have all really inspired me. John Green really inspired me too. At one point, I really wanted to be able to write like him because I think he's incredible. But yeah, so very traditional, like very popular young adult fantasies that were I like in the early 2000s kind of were my jam. That's kind of what inspired me. To this day, I just absolutely love the Twilight series and stuff like that, which is so cliche and cheesy, but it's true. That's where it came from.
Love it. What type of books did you grow up reading? Did you have a favorite?
um, Growing up, I just loved stuff like the Magic Treehouse, and I just loved um any tiny chapter books that had anything to do with fantasy. I remember reading like a fairy themed series, and I loved fairies. I think fairies was a really big impact for me. Um, but yeah, just like random stuff. And I think really the big hitter was that urban fantasy Wings book just really took me to a whole different level. I liked reading, but not until I was in sixth grade, and that's kind of when it really was like, wow, I really really love this. But lots of fantasy stuff, and I think that's kind of where I've always been drawn, especially as a child, fantasy. But yeah.
Love that. On the opposite side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors?
Now I'm reading a lot of rom-coms because that's what I'm going to be writing next. So I've been trying to really get a feel for that kind of stuff, contemporary romance. Love Ali Hazelwood and love The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. That kind of vibe is what my next book is going to be, which is completely different from the young adult fantasy that I am writing now. So it's just a total change, but I just love things like that. And I don't know if it's because they are popular right now, that's why I'm liking them, but I just like that they're lighthearted and they're standalones and you can just read them and get a good vibe from them and you feel good after. And that's like, you don't have to worry about picking up the next book in the series. I used to really love being able to just like read a 5 book series, but now it's like I just want something just solid, one standalone. And I love the contemporary romances. I don't know if I would ever want to write something as steamy as some of the ones that are out, but I enjoy them. And I don't know if I have the potential to write like that, but I'm going to try because I think that they're super awesome. But yeah, that's kind of what Ali Hazelwood right now. She's kind of who I'm trying to be. I want to chase that she's kind of, I idolize her right now.
What would you tell someone who's just starting out with reading again?
With reading again, I have honestly never been asked this question before. That is such an interesting question. Um, I feel like definitely don't just read stuff that everybody else is enjoying. Just like you can, but I would really just pick up what you want to read and don't worry about it being overly popular or if it's not popular. If you think it's going to be interesting and you read the back of it, chase that, and try different things. I think it's good to experiment and give things a chance, because sometimes, like, I don't know, we all judge books off their covers and things, but just be open-minded and enjoy it, and don't worry about reading a billion books, like especially if you're getting into something like bookstagram or something. It can feel overwhelming, I think, sometimes, to see how much other people are reading and getting complete. And some people will read 100 plus books a year, and you don't have to do that. You could read one book in a whole year and you would still be a wonderful reader. You know what I mean? So just like do what you want to do and it was best for you and your time frame, and don't push it. It's supposed to be a fun thing, relaxing thing.
Amazing. On the opposite side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Oh, so writing a book is just so it's difficult, but it's totally possible. And I think a lot of people worry about when they're writing is they want to make it perfect the very first time. And they're like, they don't want to have to write 10 drafts and they don't want to have to go through all that. They just want to write it, like, be good the first time and have their voice developed. And I think the best thing to do is to not worry about that and just write. And I always tell people, if you can just finish a book and have a beginning and a middle and an end, that is when things become possible for you. So I always just tell people, write that first draft and do not try and edit it. Do not try and fix it. Do not worry if it makes sense. Even if you have a bare skeleton of a story, you can finally work with something once it's there, even if it is just like a bare skeleton. So just write it out, even if it's word vomit. Just get it out, your idea that you're trying to put out, even if it only ends up being 30,000 words or something. If you have a beginning and a middle and end, you can start to add and expand and grow it. But I think so many people will write like the first 3 chapters and they're like, oh, I hate this. I need to fix it. I know there's so much I need to fix. And they panic and they want to fix it. And I just tell people, just write, just keep writing, finish one draft, and then all of a sudden, like, more possibilities will open up for you. So trying to be a perfectionist is not the way to go when you're first writing a book, because potentially you could write one whole draft and then you realize, oh, I'm better now, I'm going to write another one, and be okay with writing another one. Or, you know what I mean? It just, sometimes it will take time, and it will not be perfect at the very beginning. So if you can be okay with that growth and not trying to fix everything at the beginning, I think that's the best way to go as a first writer, is just getting it all out on the page, you know?
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
I think a lot of people are shocked when I tell them that I'm a dental hygienist on the side, because I don't talk about it very often. Um, I don't know. I feel like it's like this hidden side of myself that I just like, I don't, it's not like my dream, right? Obviously, I want to be a full-time author, so I don't really bring it up. But I think a lot of people are shocked when I tell them I have a day job, like 2 days a week, I'm doing that. And the rest of the time, I'm trying to write and become a full-time writer, because that would be the goal. But yeah, that, and I absolutely love horses. I have horses, and sometimes people are surprised to find out that I own horses. That's another thing that I don't really talk about on my social media or that often. So yeah, like, there's a life outside of that social world that I'm showing everybody else. It's all just reading, writing, reading, writing, and that's all I'm pushing and pushing all the time, because that's my brand. I've branded myself that way, and so I kind of have to stick to those things. But there is a whole different world, a whole different side of myself that I think a lot of people don't know. But that's just the inevitable when you have a social media platform and you're constantly on social media, because you only show a certain side of yourself. But yeah, those are a couple of the things that I think people don't expect.
Love it. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Um, I don't know. I mean, this has just been fun. I love getting to talk about my books, and every once in a while, I get lucky enough to have someone that wants to ask me questions. So I guess just thank you for letting me be on here and to talk about it, because it's so fun for me. But yeah, that's about it.
Where's the best place for readers to find your books? I know that some readers love signed copies. Is that an option, and the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, so I do have signed copies on my website. It's just kendrathomasbooks.com, but they have gold stained edges if you get them from me, and I include art prints and things like that, because I just think it's so much fun to do signed copies. But yeah, my website for signed copies, and then Amazon. Everything else, I have the two of the books have audiobooks, but they should all have hardbacks and paperbacks and ebook. But yeah, Amazon, and then my website is probably the best place. And then to connect with me, just DM me on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram, or there is a contact me page on my website as well if you want to get in contact with me. But I'm pretty quick to answer my DMs. So Kendra Thomas author is my Instagram, and that's where I'm mostly hanging out all the time.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes so that everyone can find it. And thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so much fun.